Today we celebrate the second stop along the Easter Triduum, as Jeff mentioned yesterday on Maundy Thursday. Today is a dark day. It's followed by an even darker night. The text says, in fact, that the sun went down at noon, a disorienting detail of Holy Week. Anyway, today we try our best to embrace the blackness of this experience. Well, at least we can try. The Christian journey is a journey of light. Think about it. 3 or 4 months ago, we began our Advent journey with a single candle. And at that point of the liturgical calendar, we were getting ourselves ready again for the birth of God, which is a really big idea, which is why also the ancients gave us 4 weeks to get prepared for that. Each subsequent Sunday of Advent, we added another candle to the circle until the 5th candle, the one we call the Christ candle, contributed on Christmas Eve, even more than its fair share to the hard work of the other 4 candles. And it didn't stop there. Remember Epiphany? Remember when the bright star in the east, the one the Zoroastrian priests followed, joined? Remember when that star joined in the light parade? I guess even the stars couldn't resist the story unfolding. And even that wasn't the end of it. Not long after the visitation of the wise guys and the universal logic of the baby God, we talked about the bizarre happenings on the Mount of Transfiguration. Does that ring a bell? We talked about that bleach show of that dazzling display of light, so blinding, so white, so intense, so mind-bendingly bright, that the friends of Jesus wanted to just stop and build something beautiful around it to somehow preserve it. Slowly increasing light almost perfectly encapsulates the whole story of God in the cosmos. Follow yourself, retrace your evolution, track your curiosity through the telescope or the microscope, you pick. It's all the same. They both speak of home, which is a way of talking about this building light. You see, friends, light and darkness are forces we understand. Our bodies are fluent in the language of particles, or are they waves, or does it actually matter? John the Beloved, who is our tour guide now, has a lot to say about the darkness, which I suppose he wants us to understand as the arch enemy of the Word made flesh, this light, this baby born to Mary. It sure seems like John wants us to see darkness as the enemy of this slowly building divine light, this inbreaking revelation, this rabbi, this collector of misfits and disappointed fools. John talks about darkness almost as much as John talks about light. John 1:5 says, "This light, however small and seemingly insignificant at first, was the force that darkness could not defeat." Actually, starting in verse 4 of John 1, it reads this way, "In him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it." Like those Advent candles we lit together all those months ago, like the star, like the blinding light on the mountainside, that light knew how to be seen. John certainly implies that light is invincible, unstoppable, impossible to defeat. But the deepest truth might be that both light and darkness fit, don't they? After all, neither exist independent of the other, and tonight, at any rate, we only have this darkness as our friend. Sunday is a long way away still. Good Friday sits near the opposite end of the long road that we've traveled from Advent. Regardless of how John wants to tell us the story today, at least at this precise moment, darkness seems to be winning. Tell us the truth, John. You were there, in fact. You may have been the only fella among all of them that was there. You and several Marys are our only eyes tonight. Friends, if we are to find our way through Good Friday, it'll have to be through this murky darkness. There will be no light to guide us now. Take your time tonight, John. When you wrote your memories, you had the benefit of knowing how all this ended, but not when you experienced it for the first time, in real time. That's our work tonight. And whether or not we ever manage to see darkness as our friend, whether or not we ever find peace in darkness, whether or not we ever manage to willingly learn what it's trying to teach us today, we have no choice but to sit in the darkness. For a few days, at least, and it won't kill us, I don't think, somehow this too is home. Now generally, I think of our historic perspective as an advantage, meaning we can make sense of what the ancients may not have understood as readily, given the fact that they were too close to the events themselves to properly grasp the whole meaning of them. I mean, we know more now. We have the long shot view of history. That's got to be worth something, right? We have so many more layers of revelation, of truth that has accumulated over 1,000 generations. Surely, dear ones, we hold the privileged perspective. I love where we sit in history, don't get me wrong, but today, I admit, I actually envy the friends of Jesus. They thought they lost him. Actually, they did on Good Friday. They watched him die. Well, those who had the stomach to watch did. They stood by as he was buried in a rich man's tomb. They saw it all firsthand, in real time. No body doubles, no stand-ins, no program notes to explain and contextualize the loss they experienced with their weary hearts and minds. And for just this moment, I wish we were them. If we could have been there, then we could have made space for this emotion, for this grief, for this lamentation. And since we weren't, that work is easy to leave undone, to rush right past, to ignore and deny, which is what we mostly do. We love Easter. We don't like Good Friday. We aren't very good at grief, are we? But here we are, on the blackest of all days, and we're told to call it Good Friday. Which seems to me like a silly name, if I'm honest. If you think about it, Good Friday? What was good about it? At least that precise moment when the sky succumbed to complete darkness in the middle of the day, when Jesus gave up his ghost, when the earth quaked, when the soldiers gambled amongst themselves for the souvenir of his bloody robes, it wasn't good. Not then it wasn't. It was a total loss, a confounding setback. It was utter defeat. Public humiliation. It's actually hard to piece all of this back together for us. Most of us have already picked out our Easter Sunday pastels. We don't slow down enough to sit by this campfire of sadness and loss on a Friday. But for this moment, just this one moment, darkness won. Love was defeated. Darkness obliterated the light. It literally blotted out the sun, the noonday sun at that. The light was gone. Our light, our Jesus. He left us. He exhaled and we were alone. Our little candle, our tiny baby, our humble hope, our gentle king of refugees, the one who toppled empires both past and present, the one whom the seas obeyed, the one for whom fresh water mysteriously fermented, our philosopher and sage, our teacher, our friend, the object of our trust today, 2,000 years ago, on a dark and miserable Friday night. He left us. He was gone. And we were alone, abandoned entirely. And of all the pastoral mistakes that occur to me now, of all the errors I feel tempted to make, of all the leadership failures that compel me, accelerating you through, rushing you past the hard and the dark, right past Friday, rushing you to the victory of an empty tomb and the comfort of a risen Savior, past the hard and the lonely and the absurd to the healing, that's the mistake I wish I could make today. For you, for me, for us, but alas, I cannot. I must not. The work of disappointment must be done. Lost must be survived, not avoided. The only good news on a Friday like this is that this too is part of the plan. It's on the map. We are home here too, right here, in the loss and the confusion and the pain. The darkness is our home too. Why are we gathered around a campfire tonight? Well, John mentions a charcoal fire as the backdrop of Peter's most humiliating bit of personal darkness. Far worse than trying to chop off the head of an attacker and only ending up with the ear consequently. Far worse was the campfire denial, this flagrant insult directed at Jesus himself. When warming himself by a fire not unlike this one, Peter pretended like Jesus was nothing to him. But Peter didn't convince her. the child who asked the question, and he didn't convince himself either, did he? Which is probably why John mentions another charcoal fire, to be precise, in John 21. Only this time, this is where Jesus cooks fish for his friends, where Peter is restored and forgiven. You see, the thing about a fire like this one is that you have to be right near it to feel its warmth. Everything else is black. And yet, we are okay. We are well, right here. Light and darkness coexist right here, both somehow dependent on the other for definition and balance. There will be no eradication of the darkness in your life, friend. There will be no amount of light that will drive it from you forever, never again to return, because there will be no need. There never has been. You exist perfectly safely right here in the middle, and so do I. I know the darkness that you are currently experiencing feels final. I know it seems like the morning will never come. I feel the same way. I will not lie to you. The morning is a long way off yet, and yet you are well. I am well right here. I know that new life seems like it only happens to others. I know the fear you bring to the feelings of loss and heaviness, fear that this is going to last forever, that if you actually feel it, it will be the end of you. This darkness might actually be your undoing. I know that fear without having to recognize it in you, because I bring that fear myself to this very campfire, to these very conversations. We know that darkness cannot prevail against the light, and we also know, if we have ever lived at all, that the light never manages to destroy the darkness entirely either. It doesn't need to. We are well right here, in the middle, where the light and the dark exist together in harmony. And that, dear ones, is the gospel for us on a Good Friday. We are well. This isn't the last night or the last chapter of our story. We are well. We will be well. We were always going to be well. So hang on now and stay close. Let this light feel like love. Even when we are alone, we are well. Don't stray far from the fire today. It can be the place of your denial and your restoration. It's never been just one or the other. It's always been both. So keep your eyes fixed on Jesus now, as he kept his eyes fixed on the Father when he suffered his darkest night, this very night, all those years ago. The truth is, if you must know, that you were born for this moment, and so was I. We have everything we need. Nothing has to change for us to be well. We already have it all. And believing and accepting that is the only work before us now. So wait patiently. It will be a long night. Easter is coming, and we'll gather back at an empty tomb on Sunday. Be blessed.